Howdy everyone, welcome back to the channel where we go in search of wildlife photography. I'm Doug Wallace for the Wildlife Gallery. I'm set up here in my wildlife room here at the house today. Thought what I'd like to do is create a video to just show a year in review of an amateur wildlife photographer. Naturally that would be myself. Really just about 10.5 months ago I got into wildlife photography. But before we get into any of that, what I'd like to do is make sure I take the time to thank today's sponsor. And that is each and every one of you that have decided to either sub to the channel or click on a thumbnail and spend some of your free time, valuable time at that, watching one of the videos that I've created here on YouTube. I really do appreciate that. If you end up staying to the end of the video, I'm going to share with you what I believe are the 5 best tips that will help you in growing your wildlife photography. If you're thinking about getting into wildlife photography, struggling with wildlife photography, I'm going to share those 5 things that I believe will help you grow as they have helped me as well. But before we get to that, take a look at some of these very first images I was able to capture with my 90D that I'm filming on in a kit lens when I purchased that, the 55-240. Take a look at these. Well, what did you think of those images with the Canon 90D and the kit lens, that 55-240? In my opinion, not bad. Those were my very first outings with a camera in hand pursuing wildlife. As you can see in the room that I'm set up in, pursuing wildlife isn't a new thing to me, but pursuing them with a camera is. Throughout my life, I'm going to be 59 years old. Throughout my life, I've dabbled in wildlife photography on and off a number of times. You know, I've had 35 millimeter film cameras and stuff, and I've had a Panasonic VHS recorder. So again, it wasn't a new thing to me. I had just dabbled in it and was always busy with my own business and stuff, and just didn't feel like I had enough time to really dedicate to wildlife photography. But all that was changing in the fall of 2020. I was selling my HVAC business, and I thought, you know what, I'll have more time now. I'm going to get into wildlife photography. Well, I done some research. I bought the Canon 90D kit that I'm filming on right now. And you know what? I got that thing home. I just played with it a little bit, put the case and everything in a closet, and that's where that thing sat for nearly 2 years, about 18 months really. I was going through that closet one day, and there's the bag that has the Canon 90D and all the goodies with it. I get that thing out. Naturally the batteries are dead, so I charge them up, and I told my wife I was going to go out that afternoon and see if I couldn't find something to take a photograph of. Well, lo and behold, those images you saw were the first few images I took with the 90D in that kit lens, and it just really cemented in me you know, my passion for chasing wildlife, which had been restricted all my life now really to just 2 or 3 months of the year. But all of that is changing now with a camera and a lens in my hand. I can go out and pursue wildlife 12 months out of the year. I'm positive my wife probably doesn't appreciate that, just another reason to keep me out of the house. Or maybe she does appreciate it and is encouraging it right along. So after that outing, then I thought, you know what, I really need to learn the camera. Is there certain settings that's better for this camera for wildlife? Well, I know every camera comes with a booklet, you know, a manual for that, and I'm not a very good reader, especially things that aren't centered around wildlife. It just doesn't hold my interest very well. So I needed a different avenue, and I thought, well, no better place to go then the tube. So that's where I go, where you all are at right now. And I just put in the search bar Canon 90D wildlife settings. And naturally, lots of videos pop up, you know. So I start subscribing to channels. And as I go through summer of 2022, I'm finding out by watching some of these other channels that the kit lens, the 90D will be fine, but the kit lenses probably aren't the best glass to get really good results. You know, so in the description below, I'm going to leave links to 5 or 6 different channels that I believe, if you're like me, new to wildlife photography, getting into wildlife photography, struggling with wildlife photography, wanting to up your game in wildlife photography, these 5 or 6 channels are the ones that I would recommend that you go to. I put them in another video, but I'm going to do it again today on this one. I really believe most of the channels on YouTube really come down to like 3 different brackets, and that's going to be the teachers, the reviewers, and the vloggers. And I really put my channel in the 3rd category there. Now, not that you can't learn or gain something from all 3 different style of channels, but them first 2 are those people that do that are just going to be better at teaching than I would be. In fact, these 5, 6 guys here have just a down-to-earth, approachable type attitude and delivery for their settings, what to use, how to use it, tips, tricks. So anyways, if you're struggling with wildlife photography, getting into it, debating it, wanting to up your game, check these channels out. This is where I go to every time these guys put a video out. You can bet I'm grabbing my laptop, sitting down, and taking a look at these videos. Well, in the summer there, like I was saying, I ordered the Canon 100-400 version 2 lens. I marry it up with the Canon 90D, and in that same purchase I order a 1.4 version 3 extender to kind of go along with that lens. I would have preferred having something like Sony's lens, a 200-600 or a 100-500 in the EF version, but it just simply does not exist. So that's why I end up purchasing the extender to go along with that 100-400. And as we're going along here, you're going to see images pop up that I've been taking with the equipment that I have acquired over the last year, starting out with the 90D and those kit lenses. The ones you're seeing now is going to be the Canon 90D with the 100-400, and some of them are going to have the extender on it, especially the Rocky Mountain National Park photos of the elk and stuff out there. They're all going to be with the 100-400 with the extender in. You know, so that combination is producing, in my opinion, produced some really good quality results. But as you watch these other channels, if you're paying attention, or what I was taking away from a lot of the channels that I do follow, especially the top 5 or 6 there, is that these guys, they're shooting Nikon, they're shooting Sony, they're shooting Canon, so it's just not brand specific. But what I do take away from, besides the just tremendous images that they're able to produce, they're all shooting whatever brand of equipment they're using. They're shooting, you know, the flagship camera, they're shooting the big prime lenses. And that's dawning on me that I could probably get better images, up my game a little more, if I was to, you know, get better equipment. So if you followed the channel at all, you're going to know I end up purchasing the R5, and initially I just really struggled with that thing. Going back here about 4 months, 4.5 months, I think it was October when I bought that camera, and I really did just struggle with it, going from a DSLR to a mirrorless, having an optical viewfinder, going to an EVF, and there's, quite honestly, I probably didn't give the camera enough justice when I first got it because I just struggled with it for some of the reasons that I have just listed. So it's been a big learning curve for me going from the 90D to the R5, but it's a great camera. I really do like the silent shooting mode. The 20 frames a second, I could do without it, quite honestly. 10 frames a second would probably be fine for me. But if you're like me, I still like hitting the shutter button. I just end up with a tremendous amount of images to go through with 20 frames a second. And once I get the camera figured out, I start feeling that my image quality is better with the R5 than it was with the 90D, even though I really didn't think so initially with the purchase. And then as we're going on here coming into 2023, I'm still watching all these other channels, and I know these guys are pros, but their image quality is just stunning to me. And again, I'm noticing, they're shooting high megapixel cameras for the most part, and they're shooting prime lenses for the most part. And it's not that you can't get good quality image with budget gear. You can, but the better gear is going to produce a better result. So anyways, here just a few weeks ago, I ended up purchasing the EF version 600mm prime lens f4. The version 2, if I hadn't said that, and it is used. And I did put a video out on the hassles of getting that lens, but I believe these images that you're seeing here that I've taken the last 3 weeks with that lens, to me, I really see a huge jump in the image quality with that. I know a lot of us can be guilty of what's called GAS, gear acquisition syndrome. Honestly, it doesn't matter what your pocketbook level is, how deep your pockets are. We're all going to play at the level that we can afford to play, and whatever that is, there's no shame in it. It is for just going out, having fun. But if you're like me, once I decide I'm doing something, I go all in 120%, and then that typically leads to me purchasing the better equipment with whatever hobby I'm deciding to do at the time. So I've ended up with this 600 f4 prime lens, the EF version. I'm using it on the R5, and it is really kicking ass in my opinion. You still need to get close to the animals. You still need to do all those other things, but if you do all the other things that you're supposed to do, you are going to see a huge jump in the image quality. And then the last part of that, having really good equipment, is going and learning how to edit your images with whatever software you're learning to do that with. And that has been a big learning curve for me. I've learned a lot of things from other people that use Lightroom. I use ON1. The sliders and stuff and how you access that stuff is going to be different from one program to the next. But again, if you're using ON1, don't be afraid to watch the guys that use Lightroom. And if you're using Lightroom, don't be afraid to watch some videos of guys that are using and gals that are using ON1. It's just going to to me, it gives me a different perspective how somebody is doing something. And again, like I said earlier, I learn better by watching somebody do it on a video or looking at pictures or something better than I do reading a manual of something. So anyways, if you've made it this far, these are the 5 tips that I would recommend, or the biggest takeaways coming up right after you see these images here. All right, everyone, if you made it this far, here are what I think are the 5 tips that will help you in your wildlife photography. If you're thinking about getting into wildlife photography, struggling with wildlife photography, these are in my opinion, the 5 things that will help you elevate your level of enjoyment and your level of images with these 5 tips here. So the 5th one is gear. Now I know I covered this a little bit through the video here, but again, it's not that you cannot take great images with budget gear. You can, but the higher end equipment is just going to help you produce better images. It's just that's my opinion of it, but I really do believe that is true. You know, with budget gear, maybe you're going to get 2 really good images out of 1,000, and with the top end equipment, you're probably going to get a couple of 100 great images out of 1,000. Tip number 4 is learn your equipment. With my struggles with the R5, I just didn't learn it before I really went to the field with it. So I got it. I'd been shooting with the 90D. I kind of felt like I had some things figured out. And again, just going from the DSLR to the mirrorless to the R5, I just wasn't quite honestly prepared for that. So learn your equipment. Again, if you're like me and you learn by watching video or a photo or something like that, follow those 5 guys, 6 guys that I've got links to their channels in the description. Make sure you learn that equipment, get familiar with it before you take it out to the field. And then the number 3 is finding wildlife. Again, as you can see where I'm sitting at here, you know, my deal getting into wildlife photography, I didn't feel like I would struggle finding whatever that wildlife was that I was wanting to get a photo of. Now there's certain species that are harder to get a photo of than others, and then there's some species that you're going to have to, that you'll learn is that they're only in your area for a very short time. You know, and that's going to be migrating songbirds, waterfowl, that stuff, that type of stuff. So you may have to take off some vacation days to go to the spots to find that species, or go to where they're wintering or summering, and then they're there for an extended period of time, and you'll be able to get photos of them there. But tip number 3, learn the wildlife that you're wanting to get a photo of, because some of them is going to be a pretty short window. Number 2 is techniques. So along with learning your camera, you're going to need to learn the techniques that are going to help produce the best photo as well. And I've covered that in some of the videos that I've put out, you know. So just a short one here. This isn't an exhaustive list of things to do, but one of them would be like getting ground or eye level. If it's waterfowl, getting on the ground. You know, if it's white-tailed deer, you could sit in a chair blind, or in a blind, sitting on a chair in a blind, and be at eye level with that animal. It is going to produce a better result. You know, lighting is going to be another technique that you'll learn. Again, watch those videos, the videos of the people that I put in the description. That's going to really help you. But number 2 is technique. And then the number 1 thing that will help you with your photography is going to be reading the histogram and shooting your images by the histogram. You know, so maybe you want them overexposed, or you want them underexposed, or you want them properly exposed. The histogram will tell you if you are achieving that before you press the shutter button. That's the number 1 tip. That's probably the best thing I could tell anybody that has a modern day camera, is once you learn how to set it up and stuff, learn to read the histogram in real time while you're in the field. I know action for wildlife photography, I even get guilty of it. Just a blackbird that I took a picture of the other day, I was just excited. I had the extender on that 600 millimeter prime lens, and he was literally 20 feet from me, so close that I had to use the manual focus ring to focus on him, and I was scared he was going to fly. I ended up hitting the shutter button, and wouldn't you know it, when I got home, I had underexposed that photograph 20 frames a second, so I had over 20 images of this blackbird, every one of them underexposed. If I had just calmed down, take my time, it's better to have a photograph that is proper than having a photograph that you can't do anything with. So that's probably another tip, but that goes along with, I think, reading the histogram. That will help you produce the best image for whatever camera gear and lens setup that you have. It won't matter if you have a $5 budget gear or a $15,000 setup. If you're not shooting by the histogram, you're missing out, and you're not producing the best image that you could. Well, everyone, that's the end of this video, a year in review of getting into wildlife photography. I appreciate you staying this long. Like, share, subscribe, and I always say this: be safe while you're out there getting your wildlife photography or whatever other photography you're doing with whatever brand of gear you're doing it with. Be safe, have fun. I'm positive somebody at home would like to see you again. I'll catch you all on the next one.